Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Hey, Thomas, thank you so much for your time, my brother. Yeah, you came all the way from Huapehu,
Yeah, yeah,
to Wellington to do the session. You got
yeah,
some people here. I'm glad to see
yeah,
you're doing jiu-jitsu as well.
yeah,
Peter's gonna be really happy to see that.
yeah,
Shout out to Peter as well, man. I haven't seen him in a long time. Yeah.
yeah. And well, fun story on that too is that it was actually Pete. So Pete's donated the use of his mats, his canvas, like so everything that we have as a local club to work on is because Pete let us use it. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's super cool. So, can you talk a little bit about this project? What's going on there?
yeah, yeah. So if we talk on the club itself. So our club is in Rahi Rupehu. It's the coach is from Carreras and they're based in Wanganui. He comes up, Tim, he comes up every Monday and he gives us an hour and a half session. It's awesome. He's got the experience to help teach everyone, but really we're all fresh. We've got some higher level white belt, but really it's all that white belt. Everyone's keen to learn range. And then Thursdays, we have kind of free roll sessions where it's just like everyone who's keen, we show up. Sometimes we go harder, sometimes we work on more technical things. It's really just for the fun of it. For my side, jiu-jitsu for me it's all for the love of kind of pressure and kind of that working against something and that exercise and kind of nervous system. It's almost like therapy. Is the way I view it.
That's also yeah. That's why. But the big reason why you're here because you're gonna talk about. Should we do a disclaim before?
Yeah,
Just so we don't get canceled.
Yeah. Disclaim.
Disclaim, Thomas.
Yeah. So, do you want to disclaim on anything to do with the sporting Strom sports side?
No. So because guys, we Thomas. Yeah, he's one of the most respected guy related to supplements and vitamins in New Zealand. And he runs a store, right? An online store, named Strom. And we're gonna talk about the supplements. And I'm very passionate as well. So kind of as a coach, I'm a little bit guilty as well to sometimes, I take this,
Yeah, I've been holding you back sometimes. I'm like, Vanderson, you don't need that much. I could give an overview of what we do as Strom. So, for context, I've been in the supplement industry 8 years formally. I actually started in Wellington while I was working at an engineering consultancy here in town. And then as we developed out, so it started specifically in the cognitive performance space. That was because that was my personal interest. I was doing technical work. I wanted to be able to function all day really well. Then as we grew, like always, I love pretty much all sports really. And so we kind of grew with whatever sports we kind of went towards. Bodybuilding is our main customer base with Strom. And for what we should frame this as is that Strom is a group of independent businesses. We operate, so we've got New Zealand, Australia, UK, USA, and Ireland. And it was started in the UK, and that main focus was around providing better products, and everyone in the supplement space says this is better and things like that. But we really focus on things like material sourcing and quality control and specific to purpose. And so when we think about bodybuilding, bodybuilders have shown very well that they can put on tissue and they can get lean and everything like that with what they've got that's not supplement related. That is diet, training, and PEDs. What we focus on is how can we help the health side. That's our like the main staple of what you might say Strom is in the bodybuilding space is like we're trying to keep liver function going, heart, like cardiovascular disease is one of the main causes of death or major life-altering events in bodybuilding or normal population. Like it is our huge problem and for health for Western society. And so things like cardiovascular health, that's a lot of what our products are targeted around. So as a very low-hanging, things like helping to manage blood thickness with red blood cell count that can get elevated when people are not even just through use of PEDs, but things like elevation training, A lot of like endurance athletes, they deal with things like they're looking to raise their blood thickness, but you don't want to stay there for long because that also increases the burden on your body, how hard it has to work to keep going. So most of what we do with Strom is how do we keep the very best athletes? They know how to be athletes, they know how to perform, but how do we keep them as healthy as possible? And we're working within a framework where this person, they're under a lot of stress. There's often a bunch of injuries going on. I'm sure like with your decades of jiu-jitsu, you've got an accumulation of injuries.
Oh my God, yeah.
and that's what we're working with. So it tends to have a fairly hands-on approach where we will be looking at things like blood work. We don't provide it as a medical service, but it's more an educational service where, say, someone might come and go get their blood work. Then we can say, hey, look, like if you see these patterns, you can look at, say, these medical guidelines or other, and you can actually start to understand how you understand your own biology. So we do try to help people educate themselves on that so that they can look after themselves. And yeah.
That's awesome. So Thomas, how we start? So let's get to know the normal population who, especially after some age, you start getting a little bit more. The recovery, it's getting slower.
Yeah.
And the fatigue. So how we start? So someone comes to you and say, "Hey Thomas, I've been doing some, let's say, some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Lots of injuries. I'm already on my 40s.
Yeah.
How we start the process?"
So, and jiu-jitsu is a good example because this is like Strom is rapidly becoming hugely focused on jiu-jitsu. So if someone's coming in, they're telling me they're doing jiu-jitsu, say a couple times a week, cool. We know that they're getting a minimal amount of exercise in. So in terms of a health thing, if someone's getting a couple times a week, a few times a week of like exercise that's going to push their heart rate up, we know that we've kind of got that box ticked for long-term health, cardiovascular health, etc. What we also will expect though, especially if say they're a sedentary office worker, things like that, they're going to have posture issues, they're going to have joint issues. Injuries that we see in jiu-jitsu are often joint related or, pushing things too far as we do. And so a lot of what I'll be thinking about is we've got exercise, we've got injuries, and then nutrition. Jiu-jitsu, we've got exercise covered. We know that we're raising injuries. Hopefully, if it's a good club, people aren't injuring each other too much. But I'm going to be looking at the injuries as one of the rate limiting things because if you think about what will ruin someone's life or what makes someone's life really hard and just not as well worth living, a back injury or not being able to run, things like that. Like the classic line, you want to be around to pick up your grandkids. So if you've got an unmanaged injury that is carrying on, that's going to be one of my first focuses. So I'll look for what is their historical health issue. And again, we don't do that in a medical way. We'll do that as a general like preventative and there may be some inputs that people have from doctors, but we don't act as doctors. So there's that. And then last is nutrition. I think if we look at nutrition of general population, it's generally pretty poor. I will encourage, higher protein, especially for jiu-jitsu, higher carb intake. That's helping with the recovery process, things like that. And again, that it doesn't need to be supplement related. Like that can be all in food. So we kind of like cover those bases. And then once the general bases are covered, then we might look at specific little issues. Like if someone has an ongoing injury, and they're unable to manage it through normal lifestyle practice, that might be where we bring in an anti-inflammatory to get on top of the injury. And
as a supplement or as a medicine?
As a supplement. So there are medicinal anti-inflammatories available, and that will always be a discussion with the doctor. We have available as supplements things like curcumin. And the curcumin, like you can't just use any old curcumin. It's got very poor bioavailability. This is one of like the things that Strom stands on is when using an ingredient like curcumin, we're not just grabbing anything. Very specific about which ones we use. Right now we've got 2. that's co-crystal curcumin, and Hydro-Kirk. Hydro-Kirk's actually made by an Australian company. But the point on those is like we can use them as an intervention to help get things under control, but then hopefully you're coming off that too and you're able to start repairing. So often the way I look at supplements is things that we can kind of bridge gaps with until we're able to get things under control. So like if a fire is, say a house is on fire, you can kind of put the fire out, but then when the fire's out, hopefully we can pull that thing out and stop whoever lit the fire, stop lighting the house on fire, that sort of analogy.
Yeah, that's awesome, because normally, I hear people, but I do. So one of the questions I would like to ask, what's the misconceptions about vitamins and supplements? Because some people come from the argue that, I do eat healthy, I don't need the supplements. But the concept of eating health as well, it's so broad, so vast. So it's hard to get everything you need just for the eating, right? Especially when you're athlete, when you're using the body a little bit harder than an average person. You're not going to get all the nutrients and the vitamins you need just by eating, I don't know, 2 or 3 times per day. What do you think?
No matter what I say here, I'm going to piss off a lot of people. So we'll just brace that. When I look at nutrition, I tend to take what someone might view as a bit of a pharmacology approach to it, where I'm looking at individual compounds and say, we have body needs for that, and are we meeting those needs? And so that's not, like, as a whole system, we need all sorts, but you might say that's not a very holistic approach, where, say, a more holistic approach is people that would be on a carnivore diet and they say, all meat things are good and plant things are bad. Well, they might not be that extreme, but you have camps like that. I don't take that at all. I'm happy to work with someone that's carnivore. I'm happy to work with someone that's a vegetarian, especially with the knowledge that we have now and the different food processing technologies. You can make any diet work as long as you're a little bit intelligent. But an easy example is, say, a carnivore person. I know from the bat that their carbohydrate intake is going to be straining more. Like it's like protein and fat heavy. It's fairly keto. That's got some really good advantages like inflammation management and things like reducing. We have a lot of food intolerances to plant-based foods, and so you're reducing those risks. But then we've got to somehow manage our fueling side. We can...
Hi.
And then if we go vegetarian, then we're almost in an opposite situation where that person, they're going to be struggling to get the protein intake. In terms of like real whole quality protein, you're trying to hit like certain amino acids, so the things that make up our proteins. You want a full profile in order to be able to support muscle synthesis properly, or even a host of other functions that we use these amino acids for, like cognitive function and so forth. So when we say what is a healthy diet, I would say, all right, let's look at your protein profile. So you can have a very high protein intake, but if it's not the right types of proteins, they don't have the amino acids that we want, then we're going to have an issue with not meeting certain needs. Say if someone had, not that anyone does this, but if someone had their whole diet's protein worth and collagen, then they're going to have issues with muscle protein synthesis. So they're not going to be able to repair muscle as well. So I'd look at it on an individual basis like that, and then we've got our whole micronutrient category. And I think that's where overall, like a casual person, if they're eating whole foods and they're eating an omnivore diet, so meat and veg, some potatoes, things like that, they're probably going to be fairly good. Micronutrient intake is generally covered if you're whole food sort of approach. But then if you go and look at certain things like salt intake, that's where whole food can lack, because your whole foods, say potatoes, don't have much sodium in them day one. You've got, and this is I should specify, I'm not a nutritionist. We have coaches that we recommend for people to do the actual nutrition, but this is how I look at these systems. So your whole foods won't have a lot of certain things like salt, and often people aren't consuming enough sodium in that. So I could take someone and they could, you could have one whole food person here, and if they're choosing the wrong whole foods, I would say that's not a healthy diet. And you could have someone taking highly processed foods, as in every bit is like refined down pretty much to like one compound per food thing, and we could achieve a healthy diet with that. It's just going to take a lot of thought. You're going to need to hit like every micronutrient, and really like it's almost the amount of data that you have to manage on that is good. So if we take an easy approach, whole foods, very nice to get your general shotgun blast of nutrients, and then looking at that, you say, am I hitting my main macro groups, my protein, carbohydrates, fats? What sort of proteins, carbohydrates, fats are they that they can support my function? Often, if we do some like low-hanging New Zealand problems, things like folic acid intake is low, selenium is low.
Selenium, yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of these things like selenium is due to our soil. So if someone was in New Zealand eating and they were eating a lot of imported food, then they might be fine. But if you're eating local whole food from soil that is depleted in selenium, that's an issue. So, but other averages, like most people I did a multivitamin formula recently, so I got a lot of stats. This was for America, but things like magnesium intake, like half of people aren't having enough magnesium, especially when you've got higher burden, like more need for it, say in athletes. Things like B6, very common to not have enough for ideal function. When we think about, a lot of people might look at the back of a label and you see the recommended intake. You got to think about the context of that framing. That recommended intake was set around this is drawing numbers, 1920s, I believe, and it's based on avoiding disease cases.
Wow, so 1920s.
Yeah, so 100 years ago, research, and a lot of this research is really, I've read a bunch of these papers. You've got a lot of like done in prisoners, and they're like, we take out this one food thing so that they don't have this nutrient at all, or they have only a little bit of this nutrient, and then they see what happens and see what diseases came from it. That was brutal testing that would not pass ethics these days. But a key thing on that is that, so those guidelines were mostly framed around avoiding disease case. I think everyone, we want to be healthy, and we want to be better than healthy. We want to be rolling and like pushing our body and feeling vigorous. And that's not just avoiding disease. And so that's where things like B6 intake, most people may meet the recommended intake, but they won't meet the amount of intake that you would actually want in order to rebuild muscle tissue regularly and be able to function and feel really good doing day-to-day things. So we've got kind of layers to the conversation where it's like, are you meeting enough? And then are you meeting an ideal amount for the sort of stresses that you're putting on your body? And if someone is training hard as a bodybuilder, they're going to have more muscle protein synthesis stresses, so more building muscle stresses than jiu-jitsu. But jiu-jitsu, we're going to have more managing inflammation stresses in terms of like injury risk, etc. Although pretty much every sport, inflammation is an issue just across the board. As soon as you get to the upper level. I guess if someone's a casual, then it's fine. But yeah, any upper level inflammation is pretty much always top of my mind.
So Thomas, so you mentioned selenium, B6, magnesium.
Zinc would be another. Yeah, zinc could be a very high priority. If we want to go on a really basic, and because the thing is you can't blood test these very effectively, in the regard that if you do blood test them, it's not the best representation of actually what's going on in your body. So if someone wanted to be just kind of cover bases, and I generally don't like this approach of saying, hey, just take this without any evidence. But I personally, I do just take quite a bit of magnesium, zinc, we're talking above 20 milligrams elemental zinc a day. That's sort of target 15, bigger guys will need more, that sort of thing. You don't want too much. So I generally don't push for much above 30, but it's all going to be individual, and depending on when you take it and what forms, you've got different absorption rates. And so my job is to sweat all the details, and I look at all of those, but as a general person, I would say, hey, for things like magnesium and zinc, pretty much just get any form that you can tolerate, split your dosing out if you can, and you will get, it'll be good enough.
Because that's another question as well, because they can compete for absorption, right? So you kind of have to space out around 2 hours between magnesium and zinc. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd have to think. So magnesium and zinc, off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of a cross-interaction issue there, but we do have a number of cross interactions through the whole host. And okay, to be honest, yes, I'm sure there is, and I can pretty much always find some interplay, because all of these they might share transporters in certain points or things like that in terms of absorption. The other thing is, say, when you take in one thing, it might promote you to excrete a bit more of another, or it might reduce absorption of another. So there is a bit of that. I don't think the usual, common person should be stressing that. If you split your dosing out across the day, then you will usually achieve a lot more just from that than kind of getting in all the little details.
Okay.
So taking in a lot of magnesium at once or a lot of zinc at once, that you will have lower absorption of the total profile. But if you think of your time and gut, say you just split dosing by 6 hours, something like that, you just have morning and night, then you are going to get 90% of our absorption benefits really just from splitting up things.
So, but some vitamins would be beneficial. We benefit more from take the morning than night.
Yeah, so
like vitamin D, for example.
Yes, we can. Let's think about. So you do, because things like vitamin D have signaling roles. So vitamin D is more widely recognized as a hormone now too, in the regard that it is something that is really signaling. And the challenge on that is that pretty much everything is. Like magnesium, you have this culture around wanting it at night too, because that also has signaling roles in the brain for reducing stimulation. So helping us to relax. I actually view magnesium more as a thing that blocks. It's not directly relaxing you, but it's stopping things from stimulating you, which is a slightly different play. But yeah, timing is good. I would say, depending if your magnesium is a form that is particularly effective at crossing the blood-brain barrier, then those are nice in the evening, or maybe during the day if you are just trying to chill yourself a little bit. Like I can run quite high strung. I actually post rolling now, I'm still slowing my brain.
Yeah.
So that would be a really good context for a magnesium that is good at crossing the blood-brain barrier. So that's threonate or pedolate is another one that's got really good historical research around cognitive health, and it's not well known because that's European. It's very much in France and Europe, and we look at America's research quite a lot, and not certain cultures. But there is
or the glycinate and the threonate.
Yeah, so glycinate, for example. So glycinate has a really good reputation for the evening. Glycinate is a form that absorbs in our gut very well, and notably is very gentle on the gut, say compared to an oxide. I don't actually have a direct issue with magnesium oxide, where a lot of people would really, like, again, I'll be pissing some people off with this, but there's not a real issue with it, especially if you're spreading your dosing out. But there is an issue with people who have very sensitive guts, and they can get disrupted bowel movements from magnesium oxide, even at quite low doses, whilst magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate, so it's magnesium bound to 1 or magnesium bound to 2 glycines, that is very gentle on the guts. The way that performs, that doesn't actually cross the blood-brain barrier in a especially special way, but because we can dose it higher, it's a very useful form. And the glycine in itself, if you get that dosing up a bit higher than you would usually in a magnesium form, that has cognitive effects as well. So that helps with, or what we like to use it for, it helps with many things. Glycine is a really, really good nutrient, helps with making glutathione, which helps us manage oxidative stress, so just damage. It helps us manage damage. But it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and you can, as a thermoregulatory role, where it helps the body cool down, and that's why it's good for sleep. So
Yeah, and on the same note,
Yeah.
glycine, I
yeah,
buy glycine for you guys.
yeah,
One of the things I noticed as well is a massive improvement with glycine bladder,
Yeah.
because I don't wake up more during the night as I used to. So I read a little bit, and so glycine has this effect on the bladder. So a part of all the schooling, of the
Yeah.
nervous system, and what most of people think as a sleep aid, what it is,
Yeah, yeah.
helps a lot. But on the bladder, I notice a massive improvement.
That's interesting. So I've done a lot of research and work for products. With this one was with Leviathan Nutrition. That was around prostate health, which our interaction with the bladder is obviously very important with prostate, because your prostate enlarges, pressures on the bladder, people need to urinate more. But it can get into a strange feedback loop where people they either don't know that they need to urinate, or they're urinating too frequently, and therefore, like, if you're waking up in the night 3 times to take a piss, then you're not sleeping very well. Like, that's 3 disruptions in the night.
It becomes the cascade effect. The hormones get
Yeah,
disrupted.
yeah. So anything like, if we go back to like your original thing of, say, a normal person, I guess one thing I missed in that, sleep is huge. Like, I'll hammer on the sleep side to the day I die. I also know it acutely in the way of, I've got 2 kids now, and I know what it was like before the 2 kids.
Yeah.
Sleep was so good. I was so relaxed all the time. Like, the missus and kids went for a camping trip for one night, and I was working on the house, so I stayed behind. I got 9 hours sleep uninterrupted that night. Feel like a whole new man.
Yeah.
And that's why I'd think, like, if you can get like a good 8 hours, something like that, that's huge. And prostate issues in New Zealand and bladder issues in New Zealand are huge and not talked about. And if you are getting to go up for like more, I think once a night is quite it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got sleep cycles, and hopefully that'll kind of occur in the gaps between sleep cycles. But if you're getting up many times, then you can basically guarantee you're disrupting sleep cycles. So, I'm glad that the glycine works.
It does have this effect. Yeah,
I couldn't say off the top of my head what mechanism that would be with the glycine on that, but it may be. So when we have the thermoregulatory, so it's what glycine does is it helps. From a signaling standpoint in the brain, it tells our body to drive some blood flow to our peripheral to put more blood flow around our skin, which helps us cool, which lowers our core body temperature. And for a good night's sleep, you kind of have temperature cycles. It's not all the same, but there is a phase of you wanting that lower. Mm-hmm. When you have more muscle mass, and when you're doing things like training and needing to repair tissue a lot, you've got a lot of metabolic activity, which is creating heat. You're you're rebuilding tissue, you're changing energy, and that's all pumping heat. And I think it's one of the things that we deal with a lot as a problem in overall sport. I see it a lot in the bodybuilding space because these guys have got all this muscle tissue, and muscle tissue is so energetically active. And so as like jiu-jitsu, like you're a larger jiu-jitsu guy, I would say, you're dealing with that more too. Plus the amount that you're rolling and stuff like that.
Interesting, but I do find that the benefits from.
Yeah.
Of course, I got with the intention of one more thing to help with the sleep pattern. But then, I read about this study about the bladder and said, wow, that's game changer. So that's the part I said that disclaimer, that's not a medical advice, but I do recommend to look into glycine.
Tell me, what dosing of glycine are you using in that?
So I'm taking, so during the day as well, I split the dosage. So I'm taking 4 grams kind of in the morning, first thing in the morning, and I take another 4 before bed. Yeah, so I'm taking twice, just kind of to build it up a little bit. But also another thing as well, I read the combination of glycine and NAC.
Yes.
The combination of both is a massive power antioxidant.
Yeah, I could talk to the cows come home on that one. Well, one quick point. So you're taking a total of 8 grams of glycine a day, which I would say fantastic dosing. That's very similar to how I will use it. I don't tend to use it in the morning so much. I will look into that. I'm very interested in that. I will use it in the evening and right before bed. Okay. Basically, again, to help me slow down because I'll want to keep firing hard. As the day goes on, I'm someone that needs to help calm down.
Okay, I'm going to experiment that. So.
Yeah, even with that, I will feel that shift, especially because I'm quite lean. I'll feel that core body temperature drop. That helps me quiet down for bed too, which is an interesting, that's not directly on how literature would say it should be used, but I think it's a good behavioral hack, you might say. But when we're talking, you're using 8 grams of glycine, and then we talk about magnesium bisphosphonates and glycinates. Someone might have 2 or 3 capsules of that. At best, people might be taking 2 grams of combined magnesium and glycine. So when we think about dosing, this is something that I hammer a lot and is what Strom really got its name on. And I've got to give a lot of kudos to Richard here, who started Strom. We're looking at effective dosing. And so the amount of glycine that you're getting with a magnesium supplement is good and nice. Like, I will never disregard it. But if we really want to hit into really effective thermoregulatory ranges where someone's going to say, I've really noticed that, and your rate of placebo is low, like you're getting a consistent feedback, we want to hit that glycine 4 grams, 5 grams and higher. 10, I've got one of our bodybuilders on the team, Strom, Dean. He's a really large guy. He's competing on the American stage, etc. Open class bodybuilding. He's doing like 15 grams.
Wow.
Because he's got all this muscle tissue and his total like volume as a human is bigger. So when we think about compounds like glycine and magnesium, I'm going to want to look at the person's total size and their context in terms of like how much work we need to really push that weight down. And I'll say Dean came to that weight. He came to that dosing on his own testing and conclusion too. That wasn't me manipulating that. So I just think when we're looking at things that are good for us, we always need to remember dosing.
Right.
And then NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and glycine. So that's part of the main interaction there is our glutathione synthesis. And this is one of the big things that we're always working on in sports, because with sports, we're creating all this muscle stress. We're creating literal damage that we have to clean up. Some of the, let's think of an analogy. It's like clean up the sawdust. So if you just build a house, you've got all this sawdust everywhere. If you leave that sawdust everywhere, it's going to be clogging things up. It's going to stop things from working. So we're trying to clean that out. With glutathione, that's one of what you might say your primary managers of oxidative stress, clearing that out. N-acetylcysteine is the first, what you call rate-limiting precursor. So for most people, we have more oxidative stress than our normal glutathione amounts can manage and normal body can manage. But if you take in more N-acetylcysteine, then we can raise how much glutathione we are making in order to meet that oxidative stress. And this becomes more and more relevant as people get older because it gets harder and harder to manage that. And this is, if someone wants to do a real nerd deep dive, you can look into like the mitochondrial free radical theory of aging, which is a bit of a, but, and there's been a lot of critical on that theory and like how much that plays on aging over the years. But it's as a foundational concept, we've got things that damage things in our body. We need some to stimulate things like telling our body to repair things. Because if you have damage and then nothing telling your body that you've got damage, then you've got a problem because the damage is still there. But if you have too much, then that's also a problem because if you have too much, it starts creating more damage. And so this is where you might think of inflammation as that's part of that system. You have your first wave inflammation, which is responding to the damage and doing that good stuff that we really want. But then if the inflammation is ongoing, then it can cause, because it's shuttling more water and things, it can cause more damage by itself. So we want our initial inflammatory response, and then ideally that tapers away. Mm-hmm. And a healthy, normal level of damage and stimulus, your body might be able to manage that by itself. And then if someone had a car crash, there's no way that a normal body is managing that. And that's when we use extra things to help. In the case of a car crash, that's a medical problem. In the case of sports like this, someone's training jiu-jitsu, if they're going twice a day or even once every day, that is more stress than anybody is made.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the bit where we can have this supplementary, this is a health management approach, less than a medical approach. That's at least our legal boundaries. End of the day, I view compounds are compounds. They do what they do. I don't hate drugs, as in pharmaceuticals. Obviously, I love supplements. It's more of a legal line of when we say we use supplements versus pharmaceuticals.
That's so interesting. So Thomas, then kind of, if we need to create a protocol for someone who is practicing jiu-jitsu, let's say twice, 3 times per week, and also based on the deficiency, you just mentioned. So vitamin D, but vitamin D, it's recommended to take with vitamin K2. Can you talk a little bit about those two and the benefits of them?
The K2 is related to the bone health benefits. What I would say, so there is a little bit of discussion you might see on, say, social media. People say, if you're not taking K2 with your D3, it's a waste of time. No, it's rubbish. Like D3 by itself is still good.
Because some people say it's detrimental to take just vitamin D itself because it can calcify more the arteries and all the discussion.
Yeah, so there's considerations. I would doubt that under normal case is if someone said that to me, what I would say is, okay, I'll be very interested in the research that would base that conclusion off. And often when we say that something is good or bad, because I'm spending a lot of time on the research, I'm like, okay, how would I study that? And we don't have good long-term research on something like that. I can wager that I would not see that in long-term. So you get this, we can bring a separate analogy or world for parents out there. You have a whole world of telling this is what's good for your kid and bad for your kid. This is how you should parent and da-da-da. And my question on that is always like, well, how do you know? Because we don't do research on kids. So then that's like a really easy example of there's a lot of people saying that certain things are good and bad. We really just need to look at it as a gradient, and it's like, this is what we know about this. we know that K2 is very useful with D3. That is, like, they have a very complementary action. And yes, like the calcification of arteries, it is a real problem. It's part of cardiovascular disease. But there's also, when we look at arterial health and cardiovascular disease, that is a whole host of issues playing together. And if you have one risk factor by itself, and I don't want to be cavalier about it, but it's not much of a concern. Often our body manages these things. It's when you've got all these overlaying factors like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and then some like calcification issues, then your body is not able to keep up and manage all of these issues. So yes, take your K2 with your D3, but if you're eating leafy greens and stuff, most people will actually have a pretty good K2 intake.
Interesting.
And so that's where I say, I'm a big proponent of whole foods and leafy greens. They're great. Where we see really important value on like D3, K2 is that a lot of people aren't doing that, and they've got a very processed food diet, and K2 is one of the things that gets missed out of that. Especially, again, like I'll cite it a lot because in the bodybuilding is quite useful for our test dummies for these things, because these people have much more controlled lifestyles than most jiu-jitsu guys. Like combat sports, we're still seeing a lot of variability in diet.
Yeah, for sure. The
like
discipline
recovery.
of eating, the knowledge of eating, for sure. Yeah, bodybuilding, it's above and beyond.
Yeah, it's just a bit ahead, and they're really good. Some of our team, they're probably going to harass me on this, but like they're really good lab rats because they have very controlled. Like I know I could say, hey, what have you eaten for the last 6 months? And they could bring me a spreadsheet and say, this is what I've eaten.
No, that's amazing. I admire that. I really admire this discipline for sure. Yeah.
So, and then when we look at jiu-jitsu, we've got a lot more variation in that. But we probably have a lot more whole food eating in jiu-jitsu than we do in bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is very processed food focused in general. And I like jiu-jitsu.
And here comes Seth again. Seth. Hi, Seth. Seth is our guest on the podcast.
So, yeah, when we look at, I like that whole food culture in jiu-jitsu, and it's something I follow, but it's less precise, but food doesn't need to be everyday precise. Like if you miss one nutrient one day, you will not die. You have body stores. Like our body is made to be resilient and to last a long time. I could not eat for 40 days and I won't be as functional, but I could still keep walking and talking and things like that. And so I don't like discussion that makes humans seem fragile, because we've got really complex systems in our body to keep us alive, and that's important. Like, but we'll do the best we can to help it. And so just because it's got that complex system doesn't mean that we should abuse it. Doesn't mean that we should just eat pies and caffeine and alcohol. Like a man can live on that, and a man could live on pies and caffeine and alcohol till 60s, maybe 70s. They might even hit their 90s if they're genetically lucky. But
it's not the optimal way of living.
They're never going to feel good. I think that's the thing. And that's where I'm often, in our business, we are often working on, keeping people alive, because these sports are a lot of strain on the body. And I want, like most of our team bodybuilders, I would call them friends too. I don't want them to die when they're 50 of a stroke or something like that. But then the other thing I'd think on is like, we just want to feel good and live a happy life where you can do stuff with your family and grandkids and that sort of thing in the future. So I think we started on that with the D3, K2.
Yeah, D3, K2. Now I think to complete a little bit, before we go to the amino acids, just think about the people, especially our community who listen now or watching us now, and they want an idea, what you get. So you start definitely with a protein intake, and you mentioned about, if you're kind of more extreme of carnivore or vegetarian or vegan, you need to just pay attention on the protein intake. Then you start, we mentioned some vitamins, so magnesium, of course, B6, zinc. Then we talk about vitamin, what the hormone, the vitamin 3.
Yeah. Vitamin D.
Vitamin D,
D3,
sorry.
D3,
The D3 and the K2.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I already came with the number. Now, the missing part would be what? Fish oils, omega-3s, and...
Well, yeah, and it doesn't have to come from fish, but fish is a very good source. I'm really not a big fan of the fisheries industry, how they operate, and quality is an issue.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So it's all with that. But fish oil is a really good quality source of what we call DHA and EPA, the long chemical names. But if we go at a basic level, this is really stripping it down. But DHA, I'm thinking about nervous system health, like brain health, but also our nervous system is our whole body. It's part of what we make nerve cells with, so providing structures for it, and it has really good anti-inflammatory role, and as well as signaling role. And this is where, like the D3, we said it's kind of a hormone signaling. The more you go into this stuff, you realize that every nutrient has signaling roles and structural roles, and it's like it's... When you put something in your body, you just think your body's going to detect it and do things accordingly. But then, so good signaling roles and structural. EPA is the other part, and EPA is really good on helping manage oxidative stress and damage. And if someone has higher cholesterol, that's the part of fish oil that they might be more interested in. So one thing, if we just look at a really basic sourcing fish oil, go for a fish oil that you can see the content of DHA and EPA in. Ideally, go for one that is more DHA and EPA per capsule than not, because the rest of it is still ingredients. These are like still fats. But the main problem we have with fish oil, which I think is getting like more awareness now, but the main problem is oxidization of those fats. And that's just like you're taking things in your body that are already damaged, and then when they interface with your body, you're kind of bringing in damage. And so as a basic literature thing, and you see it a bit, because fish oil and cholesterol management, there's a lot of literature around, and some of it's some people will say it's very conflicting, where they say fish oil doesn't work for cholesterol, or it does work really well. But if you control for the oxidative status of the fish oil, you know that fish oil is really good clean, then the picture is much clearer to it's good for helping you manage.
Right.
But if you take in oxidized fish oil, that's when you can actually have worsened cholesterol. So
that's interesting.
Fish oil is one that if you don't want to take the time or money just to get quality fish oil, don't bother at all. You'd be better not to take it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
right.
and that's and keep in mind that we can make some of these omega-3s ourselves from many other foods that we ingest. A common like vegetarian source and it's not as effective at raising omega-3s, but like linseed oils, flaxseed oil.
Flaxseeds.
Yeah, so that's ALA, and that is it's something that your body uses to make DHA and EPA. But you can't get as higher an amount of DHA and EPA with it. So if I was a vegan looking for that sort of thing, I would go for an algae-derived one, and there's some really cool fancy fish oils now, or they're not fish oils, omega-3 sources that are directly from the algae, and those will have good DHA and EPA content. And fun fact, that's part of why fish have good DHA and EPA content, is because they are eating algae.
Because of the food.
So it's food supply chain. If you go for an algae-derived one, the
that's
costing
such a good
is
reminder.
actually...
Yeah, it's so big.
Yeah. So like, this is... I haven't talked on this in a while, but it's something, again, I'm quite passionate on this section, because when you go for a fish oil one, you're getting an intermediate product when you could go direct to the source with an algae. Now, historically, we didn't have processing technology in farming that was as good for algae. And so either they were really expensive or just not a good time to ingest, and it wasn't so practical. But now you could get an algae omega-3 supplement for nearly the same price as a fish oil, a high-quality fish oil one. You can get very cheap fish oils, and they might be high quality, but they might not. You're rolling the dice,
right?
And so that's the thing. Is like you go to the chemist and you get a $20 massive tub of fish oil. That's the standard story I hear. I don't know for sure that brand is rubbish, but what I know is that for the person to get a good dose of DHA and EPA, they're going to have to take a whole handful of them. And when you're taking in a whole handful, then if that oil is low quality at all and oxidized at all, which is, you can think it's cheap for a reason because people have spent less money working on these processes. Like it's not, everything has a price for a reason. So those are cheap because they've managed to save money somewhere. And often that's on ensuring quality is as good. So it still might be good, but you're playing a high risk thing. I prefer to choose brands that we have third-party testing on. We know that brand reliably tests at a good level, and it's simple. And so if someone wants to Google right now, Carlson's tests really well.
I was about to ask that. Can you talk about, because another thing is, keep on the fridge, right? It's better to keep on the fridge to avoid.
And light. So like temperature and light is how you damage things. You can think that is, temperature is how we cook our food. If you put a bottle in the sun, it's going to get hot. That's an easy way to think like, oh, that's why light is also damaging. But keep it in the fridge. The thing is that you don't know the supply chain on these products. I guarantee they haven't been in a fridge the whole time. The courier's vehicle, like the guy who delivered it to you in the post, is just in the van. And the van can get real hot.
Yeah, of course.
So there's always a grain of salt. But there's things like facilities, companies like Carlson, etc. And theoretically, I think Amazon has a really bad reputation for this now, although maybe we shouldn't say that because they're big enough to sue us. I don't know about Amazon. Theoretically, iHerb does have good temperature control management, and they do regulate that effectively. I've seen some reports that they're trustworthy on that. So
that's cool. That's cool.
As long as like for them, and that's what companies should be thinking about. But you got to know that there's no perfect supply chain, and definitely the supply chain point from you buying it to getting to your door if it's online, or the retailer buying it and then getting to their door, that's going to just be a period of unmanaged temperature, and we don't know what. Like no one really knows. Hopefully it's stored well and it's not getting too hot.
So Thomas, can you suggest another brand just for us?
We do a list. So Carlson's is one I quite like, mainly because they're very specialized on what they do, that you can go onto their website and learn about the company and where it's all sourced and everything like that. They do have some ethical fishing certifications too, although most of those certifications are you're paying for a label more than it being too valid. But what's our other one? Nordic Naturals. That's what everyone in the sport community tends to know. And Nordic does have, it's very comparable to Carlson. Like if you look at the products, it's pretty much the same price for the same sort of
I've been getting the
level.
sun,
And the sourcing is actually from a similar place and everything like that. So those two are good bets. Let's have a think. What I'll suggest is that if a normal person cares about their supplements, instead of buying one extra supplement per year, spend your money supporting a company called Consumer Lab. It's an American company, and what they do is they test products from all around the world, and they will periodically, like once a year or so, they test a whole bunch of fish oils. And so then you can go on and see, okay, how did all of these fish oils test with them? And then you can choose your brand appropriately. So that's
Can you
not
repeat the name again, please? The
so
name of the company?
consumerlab.com.
Consumerlab.com.
Yeah, so do not mix it up with, in New Zealand we've got consumer.org, which is, I dislike them a lot. I think they're just a marketing agency. But Consumer Lab is an American organization. I think they've been running since the 80s. And all that they do is they kind of have a bunch of write-up stuff on it, explaining products. And they do a pretty good job. And that's high praise from me. I'm pretty critical on how people describe ingredients, but they do generally a good job. And they do testing. And so you'll see in this test, it'll be like how much bioactive component that we're looking for, what's our target compound that we're looking for in the supplement, does it have that much? And then there might be lead testing or heavy metals and other known risks. And so they'll do all that, and then you can look, there'll be like a list of 12 or something fish oils, and some of them pass really well, some of them don't, and you can just pick from the list of, are these available to my area?
That's interesting. That's such a good advice.
And they provide some free information too, but I think they're paid as something like $100 a year. I've subscribed to them for years and years now. It's the best money you could spend. In my case, it's because I'm often recommending supplements to people, and if it's not something that we stock, that I know how we've managed all our supply chains, then I'm going to look at, say, a generic brand like Swanson or Carlson or Nordic Natural or Now Foods, and often those will be tested on that website, and I can just be like, okay, this one is testing quite well. It actually has what it should, or at least on that batch it did. Therefore, you go for that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, before we get into the more advanced stuff,
should we do the basics?
Yeah, let's do the basics. How about, okay, now just think about again, our community, what they can benefit like straight away. So, for example, one, good multivitamin would tick all the boxes, a good source of, again, protein. Yeah. How about creatine?
Yeah, creatine. It's a strong yes, no matter what.
It's a big staple.
It's what we could do. We could talk. So I think everyone now they're starting to appreciate that creatine is a yes. I really like creatine on the brain health and that recent discussion around brain health, because that's been something that I've kind of pushed for on the brain health side for a long time. A lot of people don't know. A lot of the early research on creatine was around stroke victims and recovering cognitive function. That's like 90s research. They used to administer it after someone had a stroke. So concussion, I do a bit of work with Liam Messam. He's got a nutrition company as well. We're progressing, but a lot of the focus there is concussion-related damage and what we can do on a nutritional standpoint. Creatine, awesome for that. But then the reason it works for that is the same reason it works for everything else, basically. We're making sure we have energy in our body in the places that are in high demand when it wants it. So if you're sleep deprived, that's one of the other recent creatine trends that everyone's talking about. It's really good because when you're sleep deprived, inflammation goes up and your ability to manage energy is lower. So yeah, creatine. If you have any issues with creatine, think about the amount of water that you're having with it. Say some people get gut issues with it. Make sure that you're having at least kind of like, let's play on the safe side, half a litre of water. So 500 mils of water per 10 grams. So if someone's just having 5 grams, they often don't run into issues. But now that higher dosing is more popular, you're hearing more about gut distress. And so if someone is taking 10 grams a day, which I'd say like someone like yourself, I'd be at least 10 grams a day, then you want to make sure that's in a good amount of water, because that's how much it needs to dissolve. If you're not taking it in with that, then your body is going to try and provide that water somehow. And if you drive water, this is a basic thing that I think is often forgotten. The reason someone gets diarrhea is because water has entered the gut, and that's causing it to flush through. So we don't want to force our body to have to drive water into our gut. And so that's why. Because
I had some problem for creatine. Interesting.
Yeah, so
upsets the stomach, but now you explain the reason why.
Yeah, so just like putting in 500 mils, sipping it over time should be fine. Things like that. And I think a common case, again, I'll talk kids again because I've got kids. My kids can't stomach dehydrated food very well. Like, so we've got like fruit. Say if you dehydrate an apple slice, they really can't have much of that. And we're talking about the same thing there. You're taking in something that's got no moisture in it, and then your gut is going to try and normalize that and drive moisture in. I expect that's the same thing that's happening with creatine. There might be research on that specifically. I haven't checked that, but we do know that making sure it's dissolved adequately takes actually about 400 mils per 10 grams, but I just tell people to have more to play it safe. And dissolving it adequately means that you don't get the gut distress. So creatine, yes.
Creatine, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get a little bit more on the, over
Technical,
40s,
yeah.
technical. So let's say nitric oxide production,
Yeah.
just decrease a lot. Kind of, I think over 40, it's kind of dropped to 50%.
Yeah,
Something
so
like that.
We can talk about what goes on there. Well, like if we start the foundation just to create a bit of understanding around it, and then we could talk about the compounds. So the reason that it might drop as you age is because your body increases the enzyme or the thing that breaks it down. So and breaks down people know of things like arginine. This is an arginase enzyme. It's been a little bit while since I've done reading on this, so we'll keep it general. Yeah. But you're breaking down more. When someone wants nitric oxide, that's to promote blood flow. Nitric oxide is what tells our veins to release or relax or widen so that we get more blood flow.
Which for performance in sport, it's important.
Yeah, so when we think about more blood flow, we're thinking a higher rate of oxygen, nutrients. You've got more ability to move waste materials away that are causing damage. So blood flow, I could not think of a negative side to better blood flow. It's something that you really want, and that's so when we are performing, say we start training, as your heart rate's going up to increase blood flow, to deliver more nutrients and things to our tissues so that they can do the work they need. Because each little spot, say each muscle only stores so much energy and nutrients, and so we want to keep that circulating, freeing up from places like the liver, or like in the case of calcium, it's from the bones and things like that. So we're promoting blood flow with it. You want that blood flow to happen when you need it, and when you don't need it, there's not as so much it's not wastage. It would be wrong to call it wastage, but it's like I don't like to force that system. Your body likes to have cycles, and so everything has their cost, I guess you might say. So there could be negatives to excessive blood flow. When we're supporting it during training, and we are trying to prevent high blood pressure, where the systolic, the first number, and most people, especially males, that will go higher as you get older, and that's due to a few things, but part of that it will be like arterial flexibility, so how flexible the pipes are, our veins, how flexible those are, and things like nitric oxide availability. If we were to go from a general nutritional point first, things that have nitrates in them, that's a really good catch for jiu-jitsu and like combat sports in specific. I'm really big on that because nitrates, their role really comes in when we are going past the point where we're keeping up with oxygen. So you think aerobic and anaerobic exercise. Jiu-jitsu, we've got these cycles of you might have a breather for a moment, maybe when you've got in control, but then you also might have a period of like a minute where you're maybe going anaerobic, you're not keeping up. Especially in my case, where I'm getting wrecked. You're probably aerobic the whole time now. But But nitrates really step in the anaerobic stage.
Helps a lot, yeah.
And so anaerobic is when you're working really, really hard. But anaerobic is also when things like citrulline and arginine don't work nearly as well. Like that whole process where those ingredients make nitric oxide is severely compromised when you go into the peak anaerobic state, when oxygen is not available.
Interesting.
So this is where I'd be like, as a general thing, nitrates are an easy one because it's not something you need to take at the time. It's something like creatine that you can just have in your daily. Beetroots, leafy greens, those are like whole food sources that you could get some reasonable nitrate from. And then there's supplement ingredients that also provide nitrates. Some of I think your better formulators in the supplement space now, they will always have a nitrate source in a blood flow, like a pre-workout product or something like that. And again, those will generally be from beetroot extracts or spinach extracts. Those are the two. So nitrate's huge. Citrulline and arginine, they're part of the same pathway. Generally, we prefer citrulline because citrulline is a more stable pathway. Arginine, you tend to get more wastage in, so like less of what we consume is able to be used, but also it's encouraging a spike and crash type because it's got one less step of regulation where the body is controlling it. So I like citrulline more because it's a little bit more regulated. It's letting your body use it when it wants it a bit more.
And I take citrulline with that French bark, a pinnacle.
Pine bark extract.
Yes,
yeah. French maritime pine bark is so...
To help the absorption, right?
So the French maritime pine bark, or really, so that's a bit of there's marketing things that we have in every industry. Pine bark in general is going to be good. The French one, they led most of the research from that space, and they've invested in a tremendous amount since I think it was the 70s, company being Pisogenol. Very expensive ingredient. It is good quality. What I would say is now we can get equivalent quality or better at a fraction of the price if you buy a different one. So like Strom, we used to use Pisogenol. We don't anymore.
Interesting.
Purely cost reasons, but also because, so Pisogenol, if you think of the active ingredient, it's a group of compounds called proanthocyanidins, but the point is Pisogenol is 70% of those, whilst you can get 95% proanthocyanidins from other general extracts now for a fraction of the price.
Which product of Strom do you recommend for this reason?
Specifically?
For nitric oxide production.
So,
what kind of goes to the blood health? Issue?
So if someone has high blood pressure,
blood pressure, sorry.
Yeah. So if someone has high blood pressure, we have a product called Systol Max.
Systol Max.
Yeah, which is the focus is working on the systolic blood pressure. So that's on your blood pressure monitor. That's the big number, and that's helping lower that particularly like that. But as you use that over time, and as you have a better cardiovascular routine and better systolic blood pressure over time, your diastolic, the smaller number, that will also improve in pretty much every case. Because you think of systolic as when everything's under pressure, your heart's pumped. Diastolic is when the heart is relaxed, and so everything's under less pressure. If you look after the high pressure state, then the low pressure state will come. But anyway, Systol Max.
What's inside of the Systol Max?
So Systol Max has a handful. We've got our citrulline. So it's just make sure that we've got enough nitric oxide production. We've also got beetroot in there. And so that's our nitrate source. So we've got our two main pathways for nitric oxide production from those two sources. That's this massive kudos to Richard on this one. He formulated this well ahead of his time on this, and this is where I have to owe credence. I do a lot of formulation now and fancy stuff. He did a lot of the stuff when there was less information available to learn from. So he covered those two bases really well. And then after that, we've got things like lycopene, which help manage inflammation and oxidative stress in our blood, there may be some slight blood thinning effects, which is quite valuable for particularly a lot of our customer base that is using TRT or in general struggle with higher blood thickness. And there's a handful of other ingredients, but that's why I would call like my main focus wins there. And if we think about when someone takes it, you can take Systolmax and then within an hour or 2 hours, you could read your blood pressure again and it will be lower.
Wow, that's impressive. Right.
That's why I love, like, blood pressure is
I haven't tried this one, I think. Yeah, I need to try. I was doing the HemoFlow.
Yeah, so, and we can talk HemoFlow. So HemoFlow is focusing a bit more on that blood thickness. And because if liquid is thicker, it's going to be harder to press, therefore your blood pressure goes up.
And high concentration of natto as well, no? Nattokinase.
So nattokinase, yeah, and that's one of the big functions. Nattokinase, it's very popular now, and there's more and more research on it. They're finding all sorts of different benefits from nattokinase and perhaps even cholesterol relevance. So multiple angles at which nattokinase may be helping to support blood pressure. What I would say is, so in your case, you were dealing with some higher red blood cell count. Mm-hmm. That was why it was a really good pick. If someone came to me that they were General Joe off the street and they did not have especially naturally high testosterone or weren't on TRT or other things, then I probably wouldn't go for that because it's a different route around. But one of the other things that I do particularly like in HemoFlow, and again, I can really chat these up because it's not my formula. HemoFlow has what is called DHQ. I might just summarize it there. But it's a really nice form of quercetin, which is the Q. It's QUER as the start. That helps a lot with managing oxidative stress and long-term arterial health. And so this is what you'll see. We've got two different formulators, two different brands. Both the guys, they're working on things that will help short-term to kind of get that down quickly, but then other ingredients that'll be very long-term, and just as you keep taking it, you're making yourself more resilient. You're managing the damage that can get you in the sticky situation in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because if we think about what causes poor arterial health, therefore blood pressure, it's like that stiffening, but that stiffening is occurring because we've got like cuts in the wall of your blood vessel, and then stuff might get in that and catch on it. You could think if you had some food in a pipe and a notch in the pipe, then the food would keep piling up. A shower drain's probably a good example. If you got some hair in your shower drain, then everything starts catching on it. It's kind of what happens that in our body that can lead to higher blood pressure and things like strokes, because then you get that one point in your body that in the vein that's very narrow, and then it can get blocked very easily. So really high priority is blood pressure for us, above pretty much, like, it's upstream of a lot of things. Most kidney issues will never happen if you have good blood pressure. Kidney health, like when people have compromised kidney health, which is big in New Zealand, it's usually because they've had high blood pressure for a very long time. So if you manage that, then the kidney is not so much of a concern. And pretty much like heart, everything. Blood pressure is huge.
Yeah, so this is this is what I'm trying to get your expertise. Kind of design something and get it to the nitric oxide. Just to wrap it out a little bit of the basics, what we should be doing to have kind of optimal, especially if you're doing some activity like jiu-jitsu. Yeah. To have the kind of, just to cover the fundamentals.
Okay, we'll do a walk in the door basics. Is come in. Is your diet generally good? And you can just kind of say, like, am I generally eating what people would call healthy foods? And then based on that, you might do a little bit of protein math of, am I hitting something, because we're very physically active here, something like 2 grams of a quality protein source per kilo body weight. That's a really well established. You can go a bit higher, up to 3, even down to 1.5 might be suitable depending on the intensity, etc. But I like 2 grams. It's a good spot. quality sources of protein is kind of what everyone would expect. It's protein, well, it's meats and whey protein is an easy, like dairy proteins are generally quality sources. And then we can have some other ones in the vegan if you pair a couple things together, like a pea protein mixed with rice protein, kind of results in quite a good quality. So as a whole game, if you're vegan, but we've hit protein, hopefully general micronutrients all right because it's whole foods, but if you want to cover some bases, getting some extra magnesium in, thinking average person at a bare minimum you kind of want to hit, and it's body weight dependent, so average male will say around 80 kilos, they're wanting to hit something like 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium, and keeping in mind that say magnesium glycinate is 21%, so that's one magnesium, one glycine. It's around that number, 20% magnesium. So if you want to hit 400 milligrams from that alone, you're going to need to take quite a lot. We'll think, and some of the other, so magnesium oxide can kind of, that's where it stands out a bit. It's 40% magnesium by weight, therefore you can get a lot of magnesium from it, and that's where some people might be really attracted to it. I'd say just basically you're getting magnesium from a lot of your food. Try to get at least a couple. Oh, I'm going to really eat my own words with some people here. But get a good dose. Say if you're having something like 2 grams, 3 grams of a bisglycinate a day, that's a good supplemental dose on top. Mm-hmm. It's very context dependent, and this is where I'm always probably too cautious, is that I like to tell people dosing according to their individual needs and so forth. Mm-hmm. But, so magnesium, get some zinc in, like 15 milligrams, that's good. You can go a bit higher if you're larger, more muscle, etc. And then D3 is like, it's a no-brainer. So in countries in Europe that have the same sort of sunlight exposure as us, they have government guideline, like you should have 2,000 to 3,000 IUs of D3 every day. That's like a government stance, and it's in the culture that they will do that. Whilst here in New Zealand, people are still kind of casual about it. They know that we're not getting enough sunlight, especially sitting inside all day. You spend an hour going between work and home. Maybe you're commuting, like hopping on a bike. Then the skin's still mainly covered up, so they're not getting much D3. So that's a super low-hanging fruit. K2 you chuck in if you know that you're not eating enough vegetables, like green leafy greens, that specific group. Especially so it becomes more and more important post-menopause for women because bone health becomes more of a concern, and bone health is something that you need to stay on top of early. It's very hard to reverse bone density loss, but we can stop it. We'll do a very good job of stopping it at least. So yeah, D3, K2, great pick. You could just get a D3 by itself if you know that you're getting your plenty of leafy greens. And if you actually have a very outdoor lifestyle, then maybe you don't need D3 at all. Most office workers absolutely need that D3.
Needed that, yeah.
So what we covered, zinc, magnesium, D. I'm a big fan of B6, specifically the pre-methylated form.
The P5P.
Yeah, P5P.
Yeah.
If you actually, if someone wants to look at the literature side, like research, it will often be called PLP. But as a commercial product, it'll be P5P. The benefit of that is that you can take much higher doses without running into some of the issues that the conventional pyridoxine HCl form has, which essentially it becomes counterproductive because that's P5P is the active form. Pyridoxine HCl is a form that needs to be converted, but in itself will stop some of the enzymes working that we use P5P for. So
that's one staple for me, yeah, because I'm, as you know, I'm very curious. I try lots of different stuff, but this one, I can't live without it now. It's a staple, yeah.
I like hearing over time, especially guys like you that I've known for years, that you're stacks getting closer to mine
Uh-huh.
because I know that I'm having a good influence here. But
Yes,
it's things that I
100%.
don't always talk about as much, and so it's more people that are just around a lot more and they pick up these things. But if you were just having a small dose of B6, that normal form is fine. But as soon as we're trying to push those doses up, especially if people have prolactin issues, which is absolutely super common in males these days, then you do need to hit much higher doses, like 100 milligrams to 300 or even 500 or 600 milligrams a day is clinically researched dose range on P5P for prolactin. So we've got some nice direct research. You do not want to use pyridoxine HCl in that dose range. That will, for 1 to 2 weeks, it'll be fine. But then over time, it builds up to being a nervous system issue, and you'll notice it by tingling. So it's something that they can physically notice. And there's also been research using that B6, pyridoxine HCl, at that very high dose, and people are fine for a couple weeks, but then it kicks in. So this is well established. We know that if you want to dose B6 at some really good for sport and cognitive function, where if say if you have a lot of stimulants, then you are using a lot of B6. So anyone taking, I should be careful here. People taking ADHD medication should talk to their doctor about their B6 intake. That's what I'll say.
Right.
It's something that I would be thinking about, because when you use stimulants, you drive up your B6 need. So that's a really common one, because so many people are using a lot of stimulants now. They need to raise their B6. Anything related to dopamine, think more B6. And then other basics, like there are things like B12, etc. B12, you don't actually have as much deficiency as often thought. It can be good, but it's a bit situational. Vitamin C, excellent during sickness to help boost through that sickness, and you want kind of a base level, say maybe 200 milligrams to 300 milligrams. Males and higher muscle content people, they need like a disproportionate amount more. But yeah, getting in some regular vitamin C is good. And then if you get sick, pumping that right up as a health thing, not as medical advice, but like it's a way of managing oxidative stress, and it's great for that. So, and arterial health and so forth. So that would be vitamin C. What is there any others that you were thinking?
Yeah, so then we spoke about a little creatine,
Yeah.
fish oils.
Yeah.
One thing I take because I kind of see the benefits as well. It's taurine.
Oh yeah.
Taurine became another staples for me. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I'm glad. This is again. These are, and we'll notice a trend here. We're talking about individual ingredients, not whole products, and this is how I'd like to approach everything nutrition. We're thinking about individual ingredients and what they do. Taurine is awesome for helping our body regulate how much water we have in cells. So I think if most people took taurine like they took electrolytes, they would get the benefit that they think they're getting from the electrolytes, and they would actually get it. I've done a lot in that space too, like research work, and we see, say, taurine is something that is normal in our body. When a cell is feeling a bit dehydrated, or you've got other things going on that might be making you dehydrated, then the body tries to pump more taurine into that cell, and that helps it hold more water. So that's what we call an osmolyte, and osmolytes are like electrolytes, except they're not active on that same charged way, like positive, negative charge, but you just think they help you hold on to more water without disrupting other systems, and that's really powerful. So taurine won't necessarily help you when you are just walking about doing your day, if you are living in a normal operating range, but taurine will be really valuable when you are, say, on the mats pushing really hard, and you will have locational spots. Say if you're using one muscle group a lot, then that's going to be under more strain, and that's where something like taurine really helps to maintain the amount of water in there. And that's for the same reason that taurine is really good for brain health, because it's helping to keep things the way the body wants it to be when the body is under a lot of strain. And that's fixing those like little strain points. That's where we see a lot of value in our community. We don't need to have things going all the time, but we know there's peak points where you're absolutely trying to perform, but your body is under a lot of stress from weight or otherwise, or even things like a car crash. I like to use an example. It's just a load of stress. If someone had a bunch of taurine in their system and creatine in the system at the time of the car crash, you know that we've got a much stronger outlook for the body being able to deal with the stress it's under. So,
and they two work really well together, creatine and taurine.
Yeah, because creatine does have some related water function, but I don't think people should focus on it as much as they do. It's very, I think the body self-regulates that out quite rapidly, but creatine, you're working on making sure you've got energy where you need it. Taurine, you're making sure that the body is hydrated where it needs it, within the cell, not just circulating around. And electrolytes do that too, but electrolytes are a general nutritional intake thing. We have exceptionally strong regulatory systems for our electrolytes because they also tell a lot of signaling things and they tell your body's machines to do stuff. And so if those, say you missed your electrolytes that day, your body's not going to change a lot on that. It's just going to move some of its storage to make sure it's got enough, because otherwise you would die. Like, this is one of the things, like, our heart needs a nice refined electrolyte ratio to work. So electrolytes are important. You make sure you get them in your general nutritional intake. Sodium specifically has some good, very endurance sport application where if we cut it really simple, if you have you think your blood has a lot of sodium in it, part of the way your body controls how much water it's excreting through urination is by reading how much sodium it has. And so if you drink 2 liters of water with no sodium in it, then that is going to dilute. Well, it's going to make it so that your blood has less sodium in it. Then your body's going to say, okay, we've got too much water, and so we're going to piss that out. But in some cases, that person might actually be dehydrated because they've been, like, ultramarathon is the sort of example where I say this is really relevant. The rest of, like, if we're training for 1 or 2 hours, it's quite dubiously relevant. It might help us recover a bit more if we're helping our hydration stay better. But if you take a bunch of sodium with that, then you are preventing your blood sodium diluting as much. And that's the way that it works. It's actually not to do with you sweating the sodium out or anything like that. It's just about the efficiency of how much water you drink and how much you'll piss out when you drink that. So an ultramarathon runner, ideally every drop that they're drinking, they're retaining as much as they can, because they're exercising for so long. It's so hard to keep up with the amount of drinking they would need to offset the sweating. So electrolytes important. I just don't, there's a big narrative right now where electrolytes are performance enhancers, like you're drinking your electrolytes, I feel good at the time. And I don't actually tell people, hey, stop thinking that. In my head, I'm like, yeah, placebo. But if they feel good when they do it, I'm like, cool, carry on. But on the evidence or literature side, I'm not going to promote that. There is the other benefit that a bit of electrolytes in your water, like sodium, and usually there's some flavoring, it helps people drink. And drinking more is a real problem. It's like people aren't drinking enough. So if having electrolytes in your water helps you drink more or drink enough, good. That's a win. So that's taurine. So taurine I'd focus on more than electrolytes. Taurine's awesome. Get that dosing up there. If we go evidence-based, we're talking for evidence-based and sport performance, minimum 2 grams, shooting up to like 6 grams. We go even way higher in ours, especially in bodybuilding and powerlifting and larger individuals that have water regulation issues. This is what we call back pumps, where they have a lot of water not where you want it, we'll just say simply. Getting quite high taurine doses like 10, 15, 20 grams a day, that really helps those people. And these are like massive pain, have to lie on the ground to let it relax. So it's not a simple placebo, I feel hydrated. This is a really helpful for lifestyle.
That's
Again.
really interesting. So Thomas, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I read as well about one of the benefits. So they are recommended now for social anxiety, take 3 grams of taurine before going to any event. Yeah, okay. And another interesting fact as well, it's the amount of taurine has in energy drink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of just to counterpoint a little bit the amount of stimulation from the caffeine. So the taurine has this calm effect on the nervous system as well.
So taurine, we've actually got like a whole different, many different streams of research, and some conflict with each other a bit. At one point, there was a strong stream of research talking about taurine and it slowing down the metabolism of caffeine, and that was part of the interest in energy drinks and pre-workouts. It definitely has interactions in that system, and so the point being of slowing down the metabolism so it lasts longer, just to be clear for people, so that people feel stimulated from the same dose for a longer period of time. It might. We do know it works on the GABA system, notably, and that's what you're talking about, helping with that anxiety. One of the things I always have some caution on when we talk about these ingredients, so you've probably got 90 or 100 grams of taurine in your body right now. So when you add 3 grams in, that's only 3 grams on top of your existing 90 grams. So how much of an effect I expect on a one-off, I would be very low. I can anecdotally say I do feel like when I'll generally have taurine in 3 to 5 grams sort of doses, and some days it'll add up to about 10, which for someone my size is kind of high, but I do feel better on that high dose.
Yes,
and I'm a high firing person, and so part of that will be just helping calm my nervous system a bit with GABA related functions. So I'd say it's a good idea. I treat taurine like a thing. Ideally, it's a daily intake thing. And again, if someone really wants to get it from food sources, they could be a bit targeted and get it from food sources. Meat products in general are higher in taurine. You have to eat a bit of meat. I'd say it's probably carnivore guys only that are really hitting into that particularly relevant range. But
to be a good alternative for the vegans and the vegetarians to supplement with some taurine.
Yeah, and that's the beauty is that taurine in a supplement form is vegan and vegetarian. And one thing we can say too is that when the brain is dehydrated, that creates anxiety. And so this is where I always I've probably done a bad job here today, but I try not to overcomplicate messages by telling people too many things, but we know that taurine has a GABA-related function that will help with anxiety. We also know it has a hydration-related function, especially on tissues that struggle with hydration. Our brain uses heaps of energy. It's under a lot of load all the time. Things like taurine is like perfect for brain. So there is probably some overlapping effect where we're getting some of the GABA function and some of the hydration function, and that's why people are feeling calmer. But yeah, I'd treat it as an everyday, but also, it's something that we're talking about mood and behavior here. So if you can be a bit self-reflective, you have it. Some days you try some different doses, ideally in a semi-controlled way, and say, hey, do I feel better? And what I really like about doing like the taurine, creatine individually is that these are all cheap ingredients that it's very accessible. Like we don't have to spend, like, as you know, some of our supplements, our fancy ones like HemoFlow, they're very expensive. There's a bit of a price barrier that not everyone can afford, but a lot of your basic nutritional things, if you're really just trying to cover bases, you could spend very little money. You can get taurine basically anywhere. I have very little quality concern issues with taurines around, and so it's very accessible. Yeah,
That's awesome.
one thing we'll say, the glycine, that's the same. We're basically doing the same thing.
Glycine.
Yeah, and because you did mention it, I didn't quite get to it. With all of these things, we're providing the body with things that it has in it already, and it wants to have a certain amount of in order to function like it wants to function. So with all of these things, we're not doing a hard system, say, like a stimulant, and I do think stimulants have their place, but a stimulant is you're taking something in a small amount and it's just telling your body, hey, do this. Work harder, let's pump some adrenaline and dopamine. But what we're doing with taurine, creatine, glycine, N-acetylcysteine, citrulline, and nitrates like the beetroots, all of these things are you're just giving the body things that it has anyway. It often doesn't have as much as it would like, and you're just making sure that it has as much as it would like. And then the body does the rest. Like it decides.
What a beautiful way to explain that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so that's, if we really want to focus on the general person coming in, that's what I'm looking at. Mm-hmm. And then if they really want to dial down, it's, hey, get some blood work. We'll see what's coming back on your stress markers, things like that. And a really good basic, everyone should have a blood pressure monitor. You don't need to use it all the time, but once a week, and just see, like, is your blood pressure good?
It's so cheap as well.
Yeah. And lifestyle-wise, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do in your lifestyle that improves blood pressure. So you don't have to jump straight to supplements or medication or so forth. A good doctor should be recommending the lifestyle things first. I think generally, if someone's coming in your door, at least a couple times a week, they're probably ticking that exercise box pretty good already. So then it might just be, hey, you actually sleeping? And then we can go into the compounds that we can use to help assist if they are sleeping, and or if they don't have a choice in their poor sleep, which, I'm coming on the end of that. And, I'm finally getting more choice, but it's still, not everyone has a choice to have a good night's sleep, and that's hard,
So on this note, so we can, what's your stack for sleeping?
So my stack is glycine at about 5 to 10 grams, depending on how I'm feeling.
Glycine.
Some in general, I'm a bit of a how I'm feeling guy, unless I'm running kind of an experiment. And that's, I'd say, not necessarily what I'd tell everyone. It's just because I have played with all these compounds so much over the years. I guess I might say, to toot my own horn, I'm more experienced, so I kind of know what I'm doing. That's why I can play with numbers a bit more. But glycine, magnesium, I like magnesium threonate in the evening. It doesn't get the most total nutritional magnesium, but it does a good job of getting in the brain at high concentrations so that we get the cognitive value of magnesium. And then throughout the day, like I might actually have another general like magnesium glycinate in my day as well. We've actually recently had a couple of products formulated that magnesium complexes that do a bit of the brain and the body, and that's what I'm switching on. It makes my life simpler. It's just one product instead of multiple. But yeah, glycine, magnesium, they're always staples. I'll actually have my N-acetylcysteine in the evening as well. It's probably more fussing than most people need to fuss about, but there is potentially some relaxing GABA-related functions on that N-acetylcysteine, especially when you push the dose up higher than probably most people are. So I'll do a couple grams often or more. And yeah, that's not necessarily for sleep, but it's a good time to take it. And then if I have had stimulants too late in the day, or jiu-jitsu, I wish that everyone else had flexible work like us and could train in the day, but we train at starting at 5:30 and ending at kind of like sometimes 7:30. It depends on how keen everyone is, warming down or something, except it's not often warming down. It might be because we just want a few more rolls. And so if I'm still rolling at 7:30 and just stop then, I'll be wired at 9:30 because everything, like the brain's working, I'm thinking about it. Yeah. And so on those nights, that's where I'd have something like something that works on the GABA system more, kind of like we talked with taurine, except a little bit more, a stronger hand. I'm a very big fan of apigenin. And it's something, an ingredient that we've promoted a lot over the years. Probably a lot of people have heard me talk about apigenin, and I've written articles about apigenin. This was, it got very popular with Huberman, and we're grateful to that. People should probably just keep focusing on things a little bit more rather than, I think apigenin has, now that Huberman's not talking about it, people have forgotten. It's the same thing. It's still awesome. You've just got to dose it right, and you can get I like the way it interacts with helping tell you to calm down is a way that doesn't promote too much adaptation. So when people are thinking a lot of sleep aids and sleep aid, even some pharmaceuticals, the body can adapt to it quickly, and that's not ideal. I think, and with apigenin, there's likely, if you used it every day at high doses, I would still expect a slight adaptation, but it's not extreme, it's very manageable. And what I like to use it for is like once a week or twice a week, to on that night I just know I'm too wired, I need help calming down. People used to use ashwagandha a lot for that situation, and I think ashwagandha is good for that. It's working on the cortisol system a bit more. There's some GABA interactions, but I think apigenin is a more useful tool for that. And then if I was to say, if someone wanted like, hey, where is ashwagandha better than apigenin, I'd say ashwagandha is a bit more of a, if you've got daytime anxiety, if you're stressed during the day, that's a bit, because it's not quite as sleepy or an easy context. Alcohol works on the GABA system. Part of the GABA system is kind of lowering inhibition. So if you have apigenin during the day, and I used to, again, because we're playing around dosing and timing, sometimes I'd have it in the day when I was running a saw or something, and the urge to be silly and to just kind of mess about and joke around a lot more, it's kind of like you've had one glass of wine sort of silliness. It's because it's working on that same system as alcohol, but without a lot of those negative oxidative stress and negative side effects of alcohol. That might not get it the most positive press, but again, we're talking about compounds, where they interact. It is a very good pro-health ingredient, and with sleep, using it when you really need to help. If we could do a really quick through a handful of sleep ingredients, if you like, as a one-liners. There's things like lemon balm, that works on the same GABA system. Good ingredient, not usually as profound as apigenin, like it won't knock people out as much. Works slightly different pathway. Technically, the two work together quite well if you go from a theoretical standpoint. And then other common ingredients, like we've got our glycine, magnesium. Melatonin is a thing that is common. That's here, it's prescription still, or I think they may be stopping it being prescription soon, but one thing.
Yeah, now you don't need prescription.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I stay in my bubble too much, but so that's something that's kind of working on your rhythm, your circadian rhythm, and signaling on that. I would say it's not the best sleep aid for everyone. Where the research is on melatonin is very much around circadian rhythm disruption due to flying. There's some good research, like to kind of reset you into that new time zone. And people that have chronic sleep issues where they don't sleep at all at night, that's, again, their circadian rhythm is thrown out. So that's a good place for that. But if you're kind of just too wired at night, but you do kind of sleep and you haven't done travel and other things, I wouldn't be reaching for melatonin personally. We're moving into the medical range a little bit on the legal side. So I'd say that's always a talk with your doctor. Technically, all supplements you should talk with your doctor before consuming as well, especially if you're on medication. And I would emphasize, if you're on medication, you should absolutely be telling your doctors what supplements you're taking.
Supplements, yeah.
Not every doctor is very receptive. I usually kind of say, ideally find one that is a little bit more understanding. Not everyone has a choice, but so there's that's melatonin, and then you got a lot of other things like saffron is getting a lot bigger these days.
Saffron, lots of research with depression as well.
Yeah, and so that works on the serotonin system. It helps when you've released serotonin, and it helps it stay around rather than shooting it back up. I think great as a mood tool and altering in that, and by helping in that serotonin system, it can help people relax and calm down for bed a bit more. There's some interplay with serotonin and melatonin in terms of how your body produces these things, so there's likely some interaction there, and that might be why it's helping us with sleep. But I think there's a lot to be said that general population is stressed, and so things that help us relax often help with sleep. Saffron, big fan. Mainly that one brand, frankly. I've tried many brands and many general extracts and some quite specific extracts of there's multiple different bioactive compounds in saffron, but the one that has reliably performed is Afron. It's by a company called Farm Active. And again, if we talk about where the research is coming from, it's on that specific saffron. And I think this is where, especially when you're talking about botanical extracts, we're seeing a lot of research around mood. Two different botanical extracts can be extremely different, so much so that I'd say they're not even like the same thing. If a company like Afron has a whole bunch of research on mood and depression and helping with appetite and things like that, that's where that one is a lot on. It doesn't necessarily translate very well to other saffron extracts because it is quite a specialized one. It will translate a little bit, but that's where I'd say is do a bit of, when it comes to botanicals in general, try and see, okay, if there's some new research and I'm interested in it because of that research, find out what specific extract or compound is in the botanical. Because two plants can be very different to each other, even if they're in the same family. Just like two humans, we look completely different to each other. But we're both humans, and that's probably the way I'd view it. But don't eat humans. That's probably the...
Yeah, Thomas, that's awesome, my bro. Yeah, I think we need to bring you for the part 2 of this conversation, man, because there's so many things. You're such a knowledgeable person and someone I respect as well. You never got in a stage as you have a company, you have a business, but how many times I say, hey Thomas, how about this? No, you're gonna waste money buying this, buying that. You're always being so honest. That's why. One of the reasons I like you and I trust you so much, because you always been since the day one, And it's not only my view. Lots of people say the same thing about you, and of course the Strom as well.
Yeah, and
so keep doing the good work, my brother. Yeah, we appreciate you.
Thank you, and I'll just say as a wrapping thing on this, and this is something that we can push. No matter, it's the same thing with every product in the world. If you want to go interact with a business, or if you want to go find a jiu-jitsu club, I'd say find someone that really enjoys jiu-jitsu for the sake of jiu-jitsu, not for the sake of making the money from it, and you will probably find that you'll get a better result. And so that's the same, I know both Strom and Leviathan, who I work with a lot, and HR Labs is another one. They're all very honest that there's many other good brands out there, but just look for the guys that care, and you should find some good product. Unfortunately, the world is full of people that the money comes first, and that's when we're going to come into quality issues and things like that. So, yeah, I feel privileged because we have enough. I have enough money for my family and so forth. We live well. We've got good community, like the people that came down with me today, and so it's I don't need the money. Let's make sure that we do a good job.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for the visit as well. And I can't
Yeah.
wait for you guys to open the project there and
Yeah,
get
yeah.
the project running, because I'll be more than happy to go there
Yeah.
and run a class as well. That
Yeah.
would be awesome. Yeah.
Well, actually, could I do a quick plug for that?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Yeah. Go for
So
it.
anyone, if you're into, well, combat sports in general, but frankly, even all sports, I love anyone pushing themselves in any sport. But what we're doing in Ruapehu is we're setting up a bit of a community centre, and we're going to be doing dance, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which we already do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. If you're coming through Ruapehu, like, just, you can find me at Strom, or you could Google it, things like that, and you're welcome. There's no one-off charge. Everyone's welcome. We're just keen to have people to roll with. So Jiu-Jitsu twice a week, and there will be likely some Muay Thai and some other stuff going on too. And it's all going to be in one centre, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I think a really big emphasis on everyone welcome, everyone kind of supporting on the project. They're very community-minded. They're not trying to milk some money out of it, and thankfully we're all in a position where we make enough money from our own lives that we can then do something fun like this. And that's that. So everyone very welcome. If you come to the mountain to go snowboarding or whatever, just get in contact. We can talk, have some fun. I'll be up the mountain heaps this winter too, so if you want to go snowboarding together, I'm keen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and please leave the website as well for Strom.
Yeah, so Strom Sports, so it's STROM, not Storm, but Strom. Sports.co.nz. You can also find, if you're in other countries, the Strom Sports UK, the Strom Sports Australia, Strom Sports USA, and Ireland. And then, yeah, you can find some contact details. I think the contact us form probably has my email on it, and it just direct feeds around to my email. So if someone just hits contact in that, then I'll get an email. I generally reply within a business day, something like that, depending on if I'm chatting with people like yourself or not. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so awesome, Edward. So again, thank you so much, and we're gonna do the part 2 for sure next time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Edward, thank you.
All right. Cool. Lots of